So, Happy New Year once again. How are you
Thank you.
doing?
Happy New Year. All good, Preeti. It feels really good to be, on the first day talking to
Yeah.
someone about something we
Hmm.
like, we are passionate. So I'm very
Yeah.
happy and thank you for the opportunity as well.
Uh, Thank you for being here too. So yeah, it's been a long design journey for you from architecture to where you are right now. So would you
Very
like
good.
to give us a, shed some light on your experience?
Sure. Probably I'll just share like what I have come through. I
Mm-hmm.
did my architecture bachelor's in architecture. I would say my education was more on architecture, and these days I have I wouldn't say much of diversion, but I'll just kind of take you through the travel, the journey that I've taken. So I did my architecture bachelor's with Anna University, which is School of Architecture and Planning, and slowly moved into doing my master's. So actually, I worked for a while in around 3 years or so in architecture industry. But
Mm-hmm.
what happened was over time, I thought, okay, I needed to study a little bit more, and I also had this small idea, how to utilize technology in design. That was always been there because probably in my thesis, I faced quite a bit of difficulty in translating my ideas. So I, after 3 years, slowly wanted to move into masters, and there it was more into advanced design. That is, how do you utilize technology, not in just in design, but in manufacturing, production processes as well. So slowly got in there, and then once we finished the masters, that kind of shed a lot of light on how you live life plus how you think
Mm-hmm.
about design and lot of things, a lot of changes. So I wanted to test those ideas again. So I moved to Singapore and worked there for a while. I also saw quite a bit of variation in the style they practice from Europe to Asia. That understanding was very well there. So those were a little bit of early experiences that I had, and that was what kind of guided me through my journey actually. So right now I have a company which is called Into Design. It's We are two partners. We are my partner Malisa Ronan and me. We started at around 2015, and yeah, so we basically do design development, new product development. I would say we are more in the lines of industrial design, and we do architecture as well. So I'll probably explain that a little later. Yeah, so mostly into new product design and new product development, mostly in terms of design for manufacturing. So if I could put it in one single statement, I would say it's design for manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. So that is what we've been doing. And I'll explain the
Mm-hmm.
processes a little later.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we have come a long way from like how the traditional manufacturing process has been and to how the technology has like shifted the paradigms of the manufacturing industry to the current times. So like how do you think that transition has been like?
Yeah, so for me personally, I've always been in awe, not just, even a small screwdriver, fixing a part was always my passion. From when I was a kid, I used to rip things apart, put things together.
Hmm.
Uh, Starting from there, that idea was always there. I love handcrafts and handy, whatever you do, with your hands. But then there is a time where certain things go beyond you. And for example, these days, there is, just to give a simple example, what we can relate to, any jewelry product that you buy from company. I wouldn't want to take the names like a branded company. So if you buy from them, the first part these days are not done by goldsmith unless you ask them to make it with hand, right? It is the first product is actually 3D printed, which is what we call as the masterpiece, right? So when you look at those lines, there is a point where technology is actually a little bit overtaken, and you also need to kind of go along with that part. So yeah, there are quite a bit of factors. So you can kind of go with both sides, whether you like traditional manufacturing or you can go with advanced. But when it comes to mass production these days, there is a lot of embrace. You need to embrace technology, go along with it, understand, improvise, and then slowly start optimizing as well. So there are quite a lot of factors that
Hmm.
comes in. Yeah, I would, you know, consider jewelry as a best example where it has
Hmm.
overtaken the market. It has embraced because it's such a big business that every growth, like every research and every growth proves that embracing technology, gives the company much bigger level of growth. So, that
Hmm.
is-
So, like, can you also like share like what are the sectors also like are taking advantage of this?
Like in 3D printing, is it?
Huh? Yes.
Oh, so okay, jewelry being the first main part. I've worked with quite a bit of jewelry designers and so on. So that is one really big growth. But apart from it, one another industry that I really adore, and it's making such a big difference in terms of a person's life, will be healthcare. Healthcare is,
Mm,
to be frank, we're right in the center of healthcare. That is in Chennai, right? Considering works of IIT and the kind of health devices they do, right? I've myself
mm,
personally worked with doctors, help them, so they will generally have an idea. So this is where majorly my part comes in. It's not necessary that if I'm a designer, I design it from first. If there is a doctor, in this case a client of mine, who designed a particular piece for small child's pacemaker device, just a really small part. So how we go in, and I don't put my design values there. I will understand what he really wants, help him produce it, and this is particularly on preparing it for a 3D printing, like a not a prototype but an end user part. So
mm,
changing and impacting people's life, I would say healthcare is number one in terms of business and growth. Jewelry has taken quite a bit of part. Every automobile industry, 3D printing in terms of research, testing, and prototyping. I think that has taken quite a bit of, I think life prototyping, everything, it's become much, much more simpler. Though
mm,
I would highly respect, understanding via clay modeling when it comes to automobiles, understanding with, a clay 1:1 scale, nothing comes like that. But if in case you want to, quickly test one particular part, then 3D printing comes into, of great help. There are other kinds of prototyping as well, but this is the, fastest
mm,
way that you can go. So automobiles is there. What else? Industrial design. I think
mm,
you can also print a end user part. There are
yeah.
so many. Like we ourselves have a brand called Ion Life where we kind of print planters. Those are designed, produced, and everything under one roof. So end user
Mm,
parts can be done. Jewelry. There are so many jewelry designers these days. Who produce parts right in their own house.
mm,
So yeah, these
mm,
are some of the sectors that I can think of.
mm. Do you think any sector right now, I mean, in India, which can, really take advantage of this technology?
I would say, in terms of space,
Mm-hmm.
satellites and space, there are a lot of small companies that are coming up. They
Mm-hmm.
could actually start embracing. I'm quite sure in a year, since only now the privatization and design of defense research has started, and also with space. So I think these are two sectors where they can start, and it will probably grow like a year or two. And apart from it, I
Mm,
would say underutilized. I would say architecture, but that's one really.
mm,
There's a really big reason behind it is the scale, right?
mm,
So, but then there are quite a bit in the world. If you look around the world, they printed hospitals, quick
mm,
solutions for, if there is an earthquake, how do you quickly build it via 3D printing? How do you print in Mars? So,
mm,
in terms of architecture, I would say in India we are underutilized, but there are quite a bit of organizations, particularly governmental universities, that are trying to address solutions for, quickly building in the housing. So I would say it's a slow process right now, but there'll be quite a bit of, impact once we've figured the time factor of
mm.
3D printing a house.
Mm.
Yeah.
You have mentioned one thing, which is the scale, which could possibly be the limitation right now, or the hesitance to
True.
use it, full-fledged. But is there any
True.
other limitations that you think, is there for 3D
Uh-huh.
printing?
I would say an individual's mindset of embracing technology. So I
Mm,
think most designers and artists and most schools I've visited always feel that technology is they'll keep it at a little bit of a distance,
yeah.
right? So I
Mm,
think that's a design general mindset of most
mm,
creative people. But how you
mm,
learn to embrace it and carry it along, I think that makes a really big
mm,
difference.
mm, yeah. And yeah, yeah, I've worked with like different scales, different typologies of projects. So like when before you get into the the technological part of it, like how do you approach the research of it? Like how do you like get into what is actually needed?
Okay, so if I can give you an example, we've designed from a small electrical switch, right? In there, there was just a prototype, whatever comes in the behind part, the circuit part. So when that is there, the kind of design research that we do, and there's no client brief as such. They're like, only thing that they say is like it has to be unique and so on. So when we start such a project of just designing, one tap switch, we would probably look mostly, how user centric it is, how the switch is treated, and how the switch gives back to the space. So just those two
Mm-hmm.
steps, right? In those cases, we generally start with a very user-based design process, definitely participatory level as well, prototype and participatory that comes along with our expertise. So that's more like the general regular process of designing. But when we look at a little bit bigger scale, like in terms of designing an interior for a whole train, particularly right now we're working with a sleeper class train, the stakeholders there is much higher, the kind of functionality. So it's not just one touch, just not one finger, or how you use it. There it is, how you feel, how you climb in such a small place. So the number of stakeholders increase, the number of people that we work with increase. So our research process is basically always starts off with pen. I think I cannot live with a pen. See, it's a completely digital talk, but I don't know why I'm holding a pen right now. But yeah, it starts off with a sheet of understanding. We brainstorm quite a bit in terms of ideation. How could the ideas be? The first line is always in terms of in a paper and a pencil format, and then slowly, when the geometry gets a little complex, or when we want to explain it to the the clientele, then we kind of start developing the geometry. For us, 3D modeling is a very, very, very important task because all the projects that we work doesn't require a 2D drawing because we work with advanced manufacturing. It's the 3D model that is used for visualization is actually used for prototyping. For not prototyping, it is for the end user, right? With a project like Train, it was more into composite manufacturing. So that is the second step. First designing and then preparing it, and then testing it, then testing and then prototyping, because when testing we also do quite a bit of analysis in terms of simulation and so on. Once that is done, we do the prototyping, and finally there's also participation in this kind of a project. So they invite public, particularly government organizations. You need to do a prototype, and then they will come. 30 or 40 people will come test it along with a little bit of a challenge as well. Physically challenged people will also come and test it, and then it goes for production, bidding and production. So that's the kind of difference in terms of projects that we do.
Very interesting. Yeah. So like context is a very frequently used term, right? Like in the design world. So when implementing, these advanced manufacturing methods, what are the factors that you take into account, like, especially when you're moving forward with the project here in India?
Yeah. Actually, that was a very wonderful question that, kind of kept me thinking for quite a bit, right? Context is definitely a very, very important thing. And I was trying to, kind of part compartment the question, thinking of advanced manufacturing. Right now, looking at, the amount of wastage that we have in India in terms of the waste materials, basically, and talking about material in terms of construction, in terms of production. There's a lot of research that is happening right now, particularly in 3D printing, how you utilize those waste materials. Basically, I'm talking in terms of climate change and how you can make the next step of production more green. So that is one that we could really look at in terms of materiality. Another one is in terms of context, how additive manufacturing or any other advanced manufacturing can give out is right now. Our government has a huge shortage in terms of housing and toilets, right? So Ministry of Housing has been pinpointing this, and they've been accepting proposals from across India on how this challenge can be addressed. So again, there we can get manufacturing into the limelight, additive manufacturing into the limelight, where production is much simpler. But what I would like to point out here is, particularly with respect to context, there is a cultural variation, particularly actually in terms of toilets as well, on how they utilize it. So one good thing about additive manufacturing is that as the cultural change happens from Delhi to Kanyakumari, coming down, instead of mass production, you can also mass customize as per the cultural variations. I'm talking both in terms of housing, in terms of toilet, how the user uses it. So mass customization is probably the best that I could talk about in terms of additive manufacturing because it comes with no extra cost, no additional cost, right? Because you're not making a mold and you're not kind of taking the product.
Mm-mm.
You are actually customizing for every single bit. So that
Okay.
is another thing that I could kind of think of in terms of contextual
Mm.
reference as well.
Mm. Nice. So you have also done your master's in Style School of Frankfurt. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
It's yeah, it's still Schiller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think the design education differs that of how design is being taught here? Do you think like there's a gap that that needs to be bridged here in terms of technology and how it's being combined in the curriculum?
Uh, definitely, there is a gap because what I'm seeing right now is I would love to be very optimistic here because
Hmm.
being in the industry right now, I meet a lot of other factories that are my clientele. They are so scared to get in from varied universities to work with them to design along with them because they feel that most universities these days don't give importance to technology. Whereas if you look at if you look at a car company, they are so advanced in terms of robotics manufacturing and the way the entire automation process is happening. When they particularly get a designer, they feel like they're not so well equipped with those kind of things. This is not me telling personally. This is a lot of feedback that I get from varied companies, CEOs, and all. So. Yeah, there's definitely a gap, but what I'm also trying to see is certain universities are kind of updating themselves in terms of I'm working quite a bit with universities that are getting fabrication labs into their space, trying to make the students
Hmm.
utilize. So it's not as bad, but
Hmm.
a fabrication lab is taken as a subject, as a separate entity. But if it can be accepted into the curriculum, particularly into the design process. So that is
Hmm.
the biggest difference that is happening right now. It is treated as a separate subject. Instead of that, how you get it into your lifestyle is a very important thing because what happens is the minute a third year student sees a modeling software, the amount of
Hmm.
freedom he gets, computer becomes the master, becomes the slave. So
Hmm.
probably that is why people, particularly most professors take a little bit more time to introduce technology. So
Hmm.
if you slowly, gradually increase it, I think it'll be really good.
Yeah. So, yeah, during this lockdown period, so you started an initiative to manufacture 3D printed medical supplies, right? So, yeah, can you
Yeah.
also like shed some light about it?
So there was a huge shortage of masks, right? Very first week,
Mm-mm.
and there was a very interesting story that happened in Spain. Spain was the second hit,
Yeah,
Italy and
yeah.
Spain, right? So
Mm-mm.
we are an international organization where we have something called the fabrication community. So one of the first designer in Spain, what he immediately did was because there was a shortage there, he started printing the shield. The shield design that you see everywhere with
Mm.
the OHP sheet built in, that was a DIY that was done in Spain. And that took off, and then we realized that definitely it's going to happen. The same problem was going to happen in
Mm-mm.
India. So immediately,
Mm-mm.
what we did was the 3D printing community in Tamil Nadu. We all joined together in a WhatsApp group. We just did a call for an Instagram and on Facebook. So all of us joined together as a WhatsApp community, and we shared the same file. So this is again, globalization, right?
Yeah.
Where we get the file from a person from Spain, start 3D printing it. Again, when you do, we were actually 3D printing at our home because our office was, logged, right?
Mm.
We had to carry the 3D
Mm-mm.
printer back home. So we started printing day and night. It took like half an hour for one piece to get 3D
Oh,
printed.
wow.
And we
Mm.
started distributing, the first people that we distributed was traffic cops. Right. So,
Mm-mm.
and all of us were tied up. So there were literally 100 different companies and individuals who have 3D printers, hobbyists, and also tied up with Anna University Incubator Lab, IIT Incubator. Everybody started 3D printing it, and then we started supplying it. This is actually
Mm.
what we call as decentralized production.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, really also
So,
quick. Mm. Yeah. So what all like supplies were like face shields and
yeah,
okay.
mostly face shields, and initially for the frontline workers, we also 3D printed a mask. a small one in the front. Though it wasn't like very user friendly, it used to leave a little bit of an impression. But initially, when there was nothing else, that kind of helped him as well. The face shield was a big success, I think. There was mass production happening on a high level the minute Carmen knew about it. So yeah.
Yeah, you have mentioned this before, like just now also about the cabin design of the Vande Bharat train, but also like, can you like
Yeah.
take us through the design process of it? Like,
Sure, sure. So I think more or less what I've kind of explained how the design will be, but when we work particularly with a project, there are quite a bit of standards that are kind of given to you. So the first train that we designed, the interior cabin was actually a driver desk. The second one was the image that you had posted was it was a conceptualization for a train called Vista Dome where there is glass. So that was second different type where the brief was different. It was adding as many views in terms of outside world, so more windows, more openings. And the third one is a sleeper train that we are currently working on, which I'm not supposed to share until it's released. So
okay.
all three are very, very different. So for the first one, it was actually single person, a driver that we had to design for. So it was, I would say, I thought it was the most easiest, but it was the most complex one because there are quite a bit of standards in terms of safety regulations and the view sites, how a driver sits in, how he has to put the brake. A lot of anthropometry, one single person anthropometry and designing his own space. So there are RDSO research and research standards that are given to us, and we also referred quite a bit of NID standards. The book that is quite a bit of anthropometrics in terms of how you hold the brake leg, how he keeps, and so I think standards govern there. And then the vision was the officers were very very concerned that it has to be like out of the world kind of a design of a much more liquefied organic form based one because traditionally it was all straight faced not very
Yeah.
anthropometrically good, so we had to consider quite a bit. So what we did was initially we took all the line side, the brake line, so we kind of developed a single line shell where initially we started working in a sectional format and then slowly developed it into a three-dimensional variation. And once that was done, we gave quite a bit of options. So around two, three, or four options. We started off with the most advanced and then kind of simplified it slowly. The reason behind was though we wanted it to be super organic in terms of design, there was a limitation. The biggest limitation was the mechanical machine sets that were coming in, instruments. All those weren't supporting the doubly curved geometry that we designed. So slowly we had to simplify and make it a little bit more facet. If it was a little curvy like this, we had to facet it so the machines could fit in. So that's the second level, optimizing as per standards, because we are not the only people working there. We will be working with lighting engineers, we'll be working with electrical engineers, furnishing people, right? So there are multiple stakeholders there, and we have to work along with everybody there as well. So that was the back and forth learning for us as well. And once that is done, we worked with an international company called BFG for production, and so they prepared the production part. And once the production was done, it was went live. I think this project took from bidding start to end production. It took 1 year. It was the fastest project ever. So that's generally the design process, but it changes as per every single project.
So, like as you have said, like when you're working on especially a government project like this, there are so many stakeholders involved, so many consultants and all that. So, how do you retain your identity as a designer? Like, this is what I need, like this is what I want, like. So, how do you retain that?
Uh, mhm. That for any designer is the biggest challenge and the biggest nightmare as well. but but the thing is, I think it was slowly we kind of understood one important thing, that don't keep them in the end or don't keep them in the middle. We always show our design from the very very beginning, right? Starting from, so we initially prepare a research understanding, we show it to the team. We take 2 weeks, prepare all the initial information that we want. We get all the feedback from them. The more we talk to them, the more we understand our limitations and our explorations as well, both. So we have to cut short on the limitations and explore on the path that we can take. So I think the best tip that I can give here is if you're working with multiple stakeholders, never show them the design first. Incorporate them in a much more earlier stage, even while you're brainstorming, understanding their brief, understanding their requirement as well. Because I've always
Hmm.
noticed that if you skip that part, then the design is again started from scratch. Right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, to completely agree. So, yeah, and COVID has also like impacted like a lot of industries and the way we, generally work itself. So, according to you, like in your field of work, like how has it impacted and has it done a permanent damage, or if we can say damage, but then like completely changed the
Okay.
way it works, or how it has been?
Okay. Definitely. Yeah. This to me, COVID, no, though it has been a painful process for most people, for me it was a
Hmm.
pause. That's how I saw
Hmm.
it. To take it in a very positive note,
Hmm.
most industries stopped working. So that means my
Hmm.
projects also were paused. Some stopped, some paused. Some that we had worked for 3 years paused.
Hmm.
So I would say it was a good time to look back, reflect, and also breathe.
Hmm.
That happened very well. But looking back, we also realized that the way we restructured our business model on how we work, how we meet clients, all changed. Like if I can give an example, we I think most of us had to go through this process of kind of shortening our team, right? So we also went through that, and now we treat them as consultants instead of mostly as a salaried person. We treat our employees as a consultant, where we work in terms of project-based projects. So when a project comes in, we take them on board, and then we finish. So I work quite a bit. I think collaboration is something that
Hmm.
we have developed right now. Collaborating, working with multiple companies in terms of short-term projects. So I think that is one
Hmm.
um, common thing that we felt. Not just me, quite a bit of small businesses has taken that
Hmm.
path right now.
Hmm. Yeah. So, like, what all materials have you experimented with, like in 3D printing so far?
Okay. In terms of materials, I think we've tried wood, 3D printing wood with. So I have a really good friend, fellow business person who works from Nasik. He develops quite a bit of different types of materials, and one such is working with wood. So he kind of developed a mechanism of printing 40 percentage of powdered wood, removing their impurities, making it pure, and then supplementing it with another PLA, is polylactic acid. So, it kind of melts when printing. So, wood is
Hmm.
one that we really love, and that is what we use for most of our products in the. I was telling you about High on Life, right? That's a product band
Hmm.
where we print planters with wood instead of sculpting it. I'm not a very good person with hand. I cannot really craft or sculpt, but
Hmm.
yeah, I can sculpt it in the manner that I know, which is technology. So I
Hmm.
prepare the model, 3D print with wood. So that is one. Another interesting product is there is one more approved filament. If any designer here is looking at, particular in terms of you who want to design a mug, or we design few shot glasses for a bar. There is
Hmm.
an FDA approved Food Development Authorities
Hmm.
approved filament. So you can use that for shot glasses, not for hot drinks because it tends to
Hmm.
release toxics. Or these are made of plastics, minute plastic materials.
Hmm.
Bioplastics is what we call it as.
Hmm.
So if you want to go in for that, you can look at those kind of filaments as well. Apart from it, there's even copper that they printed, mild parts of copper,
Hmm.
cork material. But the one
Hmm.
that I love the most is steel, titanium, and carbon fiber.
Okay.
Right, titanium steel is really good because the complex form you can go, the strength that you can get, those are really
Hmm.
wonderful to test and play around with.
Hmm. No, as we're talking about materials, I think I also have to bring up this up. Like, what do you think about like sustainability when it comes to like 3D printing and what is your view towards
Two things. One is this particular PLA material that I told you, those are called bioplastics, which are majorly produced with vegetable waste and with yam. So this person that I work with in Nashik, he tells me, Kavitha, this production is from yam-based potato or
Mm-hmm.
yam. So he kind of tells me corn. So they kind of specialize with these kind of materials. So in a way, sustainability comes there, and then even recycling of it can also be done because these are materials that can be melted. So one really important thing is that particularly when we look at 3D printing, it is an
Mm-hmm.
additive process, right? So it keeps building one on top. So there is no wastage. You're not going to sculpt and
Mm-hmm.
remove material. So that
Yeah.
is the second important part when it comes to sustainability. And third is, yeah, you can definitely recycle it.
Mm.
So that's one. But there are many other different kinds. Huh? I'm talking about something called PLA. But if you look
Mm-hmm.
at ABS, it's not as sustainable as efficient. But it is very
Mm-hmm.
good for testing, particularly for the automobile industry.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Hmm. And as you talk about materials, I have to ask this also. Do you see the possibility of like 3D printing food for the general mass for like of consumers in
Uh-huh.
the near future?
That I somehow have always had the feeling that food will be an industry that this 3D printing will overtake with because initially they started only with 3D printing sugar. My
Hmm.
machine that I have right now can 3D print chocolate. Okay.
Oh.
If I
Hmm.
change the nozzle, yeah, I can 3D print chocolate, but I've not taken that effort because it's a little time consuming. But yeah, that is one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of boutique chocolate makers are using 3D printing right now. And
Mm-hmm.
if you look at it, there is engineered actual steaks that has been 3D printed. So again, food being an industry that always takes technology to the max for increased production, increased quality, you will notice that the taste is maintained. So I have a
Mm-hmm.
feeling food will be the next biggest industry with respect to 3D printing. And I think if I can give the best example, um, both NASA and SpaceX have been, kind of thinking about this because carrying raw material in terms of packeted form and then printing it there in the space, particularly in Mars or so, I think the research there is in the highest of its level. So yeah, we could look
Mm-hmm.
at food as the next major industry.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So what are the like challenges or setbacks that you have personally faced in this field of work?
So there are quite a bit of things. I have felt that when we started the company back in 2015, we were much ahead of like say I started it for architecture, where a person designs and I help them build or
Hmm.
develop their product, make it for ready for manufacturing. But then we realized slowly that our expertise was not needed in architecture. It was much earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and slowly we had to build our profile to kind of work with other industrial designers. So the process has been quite challenging. It's almost like taken 5 to 6 years to help build what we really wanted. And I
Hmm.
think in the last 1 or 2 years, we have been actually working with quite a bit of architects, helping them develop their idea into a product form. So
Hmm.
that is one challenge. But apart from, I think generally being an entrepreneur, there is challenge every single day that you have to face in terms of running the company and how you meet a client and so on. So I think yeah, it's been quite a bit of learning process for me.
Hmm.
But what I personally feel is like learning and then facing these challenges are a part of life. So I stopped calling it as a challenge,
Hmm.
and started embracing it more.
Hmm. Who are like the people you look up to or like take up as an inspiration like to work towards?
Actually, a lot of people. I'm actually built with a community of friends like you. I would say my family,
Hmm.
my friends. I don't have a really thick set of mentors that I look up to. I would say it's the people that have helped me build. Are my
Hmm.
mentors actually, starting from my dad to my friends who are around me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Nice.
so they're my inspiration.
And apart from work, like what are the other things that you do to keep your creative juice flowing or to just to unwind?
I'm a very sports person. I love playing outside, and I love traveling. So that is, I think, probably for me, the entire this opening a company and then being yourself. One another thing that I really wanted to do is I didn't want to fall into the 9 to 5 trap. And that was one reason I wanted to start something on my own so I could take a break when I wanted. And, I think for any creative person, breathing and then reflecting upon yourself is a very important space. So yeah, I would say traveling is one, or just keeping, sitting and not doing any work. That itself is quite a boost in these days, right? Because you're covered with screen space and
Yeah,
everything. So that
yeah.
is, yeah, traveling I would say is one that helps me go through.
And today is like the first of the year, so what can we look forward to like from Into company? Like, what big
And
plans for this year?
this year, actually, we have the sleeper class train that we were working on that actually went on a pause. But then I
Mm-hmm.
think we will be kicking. We just got the news that we'll be kicking forward. So mostly it will be, waiting for that to come up. Probably end of the year or starting. So I think mostly our time will be gone there. And apart from it, yeah, we're looking to grow a little bit. Things have been, going a little bit further since last year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're opening our new space. People who are watching are welcome to, kind of come in. We put up an ADR. So
Mm-hmm.
any way you want to meet me, or can come in.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We'll do that. And also, like, do you have any words of advice for those who, want to explore more into technology and more about this manufacturing industry?
Yeah, there is a lot of different things that you can actually look at in terms of technology in design, right? Starting from understanding how you apply data science into design process, or how you adapt, 3D modeling. How do you realize your design
Mm-hmm.
thoughts or someone else's design thoughts? So that is another important aspect. This virtual reality, there's augmented reality coming in. There's robotic manufacturing. So there are a lot of scope. All I would say is you can identify one particular path that you want to take and then upskill yourself on that particular path. So, you kind of reach the end goal. And this is a really nice time because we're almost in the brink of, we have come into the fourth industrial revolution,
Yeah.
and designers are needed in every single bit. There's no way a product can be, designed and produced with the help of technology without a designer. And
Mm-hmm.
I think designing, upskilling yourself to take that one end part, that is the most important. I mean, personally, I've kind of gone through that role, and I think it's been quite helpful. And specialization is all that is important right now.
Hmm. Nice. I'll also turn on the chat box now.
Sure, sure.
Um, just a minute. So, guys, you can also like drop in your questions here. And I think someone has already asked a question. Tejaswini Nagesh has asked, have you explored Grasshopper in 3D printing like Synform? Any project that this was useful in? So I think they're asking for the
Yeah.
softwares that you're working with.
Grasshopper is something that I use on a daily basis for most optimization as well. If I can give a small example on that, we've used it for almost all the projects, because what happens is, with respect to Grasshopper, you have any changes that client gives you. Grasshopper will have your entire history, and it makes you work at ease, right? You don't have to 3D model the entire thing together. We just change one number and everything optimizes, and you
Hmm.
can also do iterations. Yeah, so Grasshopper has been a very, very important part of our process actually.
Hmm. Are there any other softwares that you work with?
Majorly our basic platform is Rhino, but we take other plugins for different processes. Like if in case we're working with any particular different kinds of pattern, then we take another plugin. Or if it is any analysis like FEA analysis for material specialization, then we take that plugin. Or another thing, like if you want to understand stress of a
Hmm.
product, structural performances, then we use cannons also. There are basically that is our base platform, and then we utilize multiple things. But apart from it, 3D printing and robotic has its own different kinds of softwares that come up with. So every factory, every manufacturing that we work with has its own software for testing. So again,
Hmm.
those are things that we need to study and understand at that moment for that particular project. and help build the file according to it. So
Hmm.
that is another one.
Hmm. Okay. Let me just check. I think this is also something that I felt
Hmm.
like balancing where do like understanding where finding the right balance between design and technology. I think you also spoke about it a little bit in the beginning. Like, can you also like tell like for you like how you manage to balance, bring about a balance in both?
Uh, the balance, I think, particularly you're talking about design process, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Balance of
Yeah.
physically working
Yeah.
and then getting into
Yeah.
computer.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I think the balance happens when at least 25% of your design, that is, you know how it looks. And then if you get into
Mm-hmm.
computer, there is a balance. If I start exploring like let's say exploring the form too much into using softwares, then we
Mm-hmm.
get carried away. I think that is the
Yeah.
case for most of them. You get a lot of opportunities, then you lose the starting point. So we
Mm-hmm.
set our basic parameters right, what kind
Mm-hmm.
of param sets come in initially. So if those are set right and the rule of this is how I want to develop my form, that comes in, then I think that is where the balance can be. And most design curriculum, what we were talking about, if that
Mm-hmm.
balance is taught on how you utilize, when you utilize, what is the right time. For every
Mm-hmm.
individual, it actually varies. Some people cannot start it off with a paper. Like even I'm not good in sketching, but at least getting initial sets right, brain and hand is the quickest connection to get into paper,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? I mean, your hand work. So after that
Mm-hmm.
is what I kind of like. This is my
Mm-hmm.
process. The
Mm-hmm.
perspective varies actually here.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Falcon has asked, can additive manufacturing replace conventional processing methods?
Can additive manufacturing replace conventional? Actually, it has replaced already. I've given one example, which is
Mm-hmm.
jewelry. The second example that I would give is yacht design, shipping industry. There is no
Mm-hmm.
more traditional manufacturing there. And very good example that I can give you personally is the train that we work with. Why would they call me, right? When there are so many other
Mm-hmm.
designers, the reason was there's no more welding that is happening there, right? The parts are actually manufactured clipped together. Whereas if you look at the traditional train, you will notice that if you just knock back when we were in around 96, 97 bogies and all, if you knock it, you would hear the sound of steel. But then if you look at
Mm-hmm.
later in 2000s, what happened is it's all composite material, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
all the reason why it was done is it's much easier to clean, maintain, safety conditions that, rusting happens, people will get rash. So there are a lot of things. So traditional manufacturing or conventional methods have actually changed in these industries. And they had to adapt towards it again because of the reasons that I had stated as well. So in most
Mm-hmm.
industries, it has changed quite a bit. Only thing is like if I'm a person who's welding in an automotive engineer as in an automotive company, I might have to upskill myself. I might have to know how do I weld using a robotic machine, because here in
Mm-hmm.
our own factory in ICF, right? In ICF Avadi Integral Coach Factory, they have a robotic welding machine. So the person who is a traditional welder should understand how do you use a computer so he can handle the robotic machine further.
Mm-hmm.
So the industry is changing quite a bit, just adapting towards it.
Mm-hmm. I also saw like in one of the talks that you have given, like you had spoken about how it's changing the fashion industry as well. So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
quite a bit. I think the last year the Black Panther's designer, she herself was nominated, and the most of the parts were actually 3D printed. It was all it was not CGI graphic that you see on in Black Panther. The particularly the throne of the
Uh-huh.
queen and other things. All those are actually 3D printed, and she won an Oscar for it.
Oh.
So quite a bit of fashion designers as well who are working in it.
Hmm. Someone has asked, Tejaswini Nagesh has asked, um, how important is it for designers to know to code to be able to use technology?
Okay, that's a really important question actually. To code, really, what is the end product that you're looking at? Like, let's say, if you're particularly with respect to data science or in math, I think everywhere you need to code.
Mm.
Like there are inbuilt ready-made softwares that are there, right, which helps you to develop certain geometries or develop certain formulas for data science. But if you want to
Mm.
customize those, if you want to be a little bit more creative, though certain softwares don't let you do that because they are, it says a plus b is equal to something, right? But if you want to
Mm.
adapt or change that a value and be more a little bit more creative, then you need to learn the code so you can change the mother of all the geometries.
Mm.
So I would say it is important to code if you want to, kind of change the existing format.
Mm. Another listener has asked, Prithvi underscore 9608, what are the limitations with the current Indian 3D printing industry that we should improve?
Okay, a brilliant question actually. The limitations right now, I would say, is like most people feel that 3D printing takes a lot of time. That's a very important factor. But I'll tell you one small thing. Like 4 years back, no, not 4 years, 7 years back when I was in Germany, we had a
Mm.
printer, 3D printer that was almost half. I think it was my height. It would use print such a small product. It took almost 24 to 48 hours. Okay, some small product. Let's consider this book here, right? So it took almost
Mm.
48 hours to print this. But now to print this scale, this volume of a geometry, it takes an hour, 1.5 hours, right? So
Mm.
time is a limitation right now, but we've already seen there is technological variations happening in 3D printing every single day, right? So I think it's just a matter of 2 3 years to remove any limitations. And secondly, I think I personally see much more improvements than limitations that are happening. So yeah,
Mm.
right now it's majorly time that comes in.
Mm. Okay. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, thank you so much for this session. Like, really, like,
Thank
so
you.
much of information packed into it. Like, it takes a while to even process, like, too much of things. But, yeah. Yeah, it went really well. I'm sure it was very fruitful for, like, everyone who were here today. And thank you so much for like taking out your time and that too on like 1st of January, like, to be part of this session to like tell us everything about your journey, about, like your works and everything. So it has been really inspiring and it's a new field, like completely new field to like explore and there's a lot to learn and there's a lot more to explore. So thank you so much for like shedding so much light on a lot of topics related to this. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Actually, I have to thank you, Preeti, because starting my year with a really good note and really good conversation. I'm loving this day. Thanks to you.
Yeah, we would love to have you back. So, yeah,
Thank you, Preeti.
yeah. Thank you.
Super.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye. I'll see you
Thank you,
soon.
guys. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll see you.